So it's 4:31 on April 25th, 2023. This is the Willington Board of Education Finance Committee. We have two things on the agenda today: the fire panels for both schools and sidewalk projects for both schools. I'll start by saying this is kind of a kickoff meeting. We have probably more information for the fire panels than we do for the sidewalk stuff. But I figure it's a good chance for you to get into the documents. I shared folders with you today so you can jump into them. It's kind of like I wanted to introduce them, walk you through what's there and kind of what we have and why. And then we can determine how to move forward from there. So I have, I think I have 15 tabs open on my screen. So I'm going to share my screen. Be the first thing here. Okay, so fire panels are first. And so before we jump into numbers, I just wanted to give you a sense of kind of process and where we went with this. So I worked with the our local fire marshal. I work with our building inspector. I worked with our our maintenance directors at both buildings. And then I also work with Mike McCoo, who is both a building official and a fire marshal. And he did this work at UConn. So kind of used him as a resource to help review quotes and things like making sure they're apples to apples and making sure we weren't missing something. So I appreciate all of their help on this. All the quotes for the fire panels for both schools are based upon our annual inspection report. So every time we have an annual inspection, it lists all the equipment. And so that's what we gave out to get these quotes. All right. And all of the quotes, the contractor would be applying for the building permit. I would work with them on that. Typically that's free when it's a school building project, but we still have to apply for it. Doesn't matter who installs the system, the fire marshal still has to give the final okay. They're the kind of check the box at the end and make sure there's proper functionality. One of my main concerns at the start of this process was a conversation I had that was potentially going to be probably twice the cost for each building. Was if this was a replacement where there was new drawings needed. The architectural drawings to do this for fire systems is outrageous. It's a lot. And basically it's just, every X number of feet, you need a smoke head. But if you do a one-to-one system exchange, which happens a lot, you leave it as is. You don't need the drawings. And so I confirmed that with the fire marshal, which is great. This is a system exchange. There's no areas of our buildings that, we see as, looking at the maps and the, just where the smoke heads are, we're stuck. So that's important to know. And that kept our cost down because a $50,000 quote is really plus another $50,000 for all the drawings and things you would have to do if you did that. Obviously this does not have any fire suppression in it. This is just the alarm. Okay. All of these have a 1-year warranty for their systems. I think that's pitiful, but it is industry standard, I'm told. I think it's sad for something that's expensive, but it is what it is. In all of these, they're using existing wiring, which is common because it's not the wiring that goes bad. It's to the smoke heads and the panels. It's the panels and the smoke heads that go bad. Nobody has painting and patching and cleaning up around any panels. That's all owned by us. Monitoring is not part of this process. It's just the replacement product. And the funds for this project do not require a town meeting. So this is one where the money was placed in a specific spot where once the board is ready to act, you would make a recommendation, the full board would act. And that would then trigger the to get it in motion. The money's there. All right. So knowing that, we got quotes from, and I'm doing both at the same time, basically. We got quotes from 3 different companies. And what I'll tell you is 2 of the companies were kind of with us from the get-go when we first initially put this in and we're getting quotes. And what they did was they kind of matched what was in CIP. So there was a kind of a dollar amount that was put out there, and we said, here's, the estimate, and they matched it. Siemens came in very late into this process. And there's someone else that does fire panels. And I don't think they just looked at what we had in the CIP in plan. And so initially, when this is the money that's in CIP, 41,500 for CAES, that's the budget, and HMS is 62,500. And I will tell you, initially, two of the quotes in each of these buildings were within $500 or spot on the budgeted number. Siemens came in after the fact, and I don't think they looked at the CIP. I think they just looked at, this is what it would cost. They obviously have their profit built into that, and they presented their price. So you can see in these, and I'll show you some of the things in what the actual documents look like in a second. Siemens, the cost was $27,100 for center school. There's a 25% deposit down. It is a Siemens panel. It is proprietary. It's something I don't like, but it is extremely common practice for a lot of these things. And to be quite frank, doesn't matter if it's proprietary when it's a $20,000 difference between their quote and the next one, in my opinion. Johnson Controls was 47,000, 30% down. They actually, if you've heard of the Simplex Grinnell, Johnson has purchased them. And so they would have a Simplex panel. And then the Fire Control Service Company is the last quote at 47,310. They did not identify the deposit in their contract, their quote, and they would use Firelight. Firelight is the only one that is non-proprietary. And what that means is you could call what we'll call any mom and pops, someone that can service a fire panel. Any shop could service a Firelight, whereas a Simplex panel can only be serviced by a Simplex certified person. All right. A Siemens panel can only be serviced by a Siemens person. Now, that's not great, but it's very, very common. I asked Mike about that, McCoo about that, simply because he was in the business at UConn doing this. And he said, no, that's very, very common. It is what it is.
How often do we service them?
Annually. It's not the annual service that is the gotcha. And sometimes it's the parts, because the only place you can get the part is from a certified dealer, and that's the only part. It's not like you can install the Amazon part into your panel.
That's probably true for the Firelight too. You're not going to get Amazon parts for a Firelight panel. Even if it's not proprietary,
you might be getting Firelight parts. It's just that anyone could work on it. So right. I agree though, Michelle. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, I want to chintz on parts.
What's that, Donna?
I want to make sure that when we go forward, we realize we should not be what I call chintzing on the parts of a fire monitoring system, because I'd rather pay the $50 than the $2 because it's a fire monitoring system. You can't afford for it to fail.
Correct. I agree. Yeah, those and those calls don't happen often when we have to repair something. What they do, they're pricey, but I have the same philosophy, Donna. When something happens with a fire panel, I think the guys panic a little bit because they're calling me with sometimes an expensive bill, and I say it's something we have to fix. You just do it, and so that's known. So HMS is similar. You can see the difference there is by 15,000. Siemens was the low again. Same amount down. We currently have Simplex Grinnell panels. They've been fine, but they're outdated. They've lived their life, and this is where it gets hard to get parts because they are outdated. So that's why these need to be replaced. So based upon this, my recommendation to you would be to go through Siemens and just having I asked Mike McCoo to review this as well. I asked my custodian at Center School, Matt Jensen, to go through and make sure he didn't see anything in the list of equipment that was missing and drastically different. And there was only one thing, and I'll show you that. And it is not something significant that's going to impact the price. So in the Siemens, this is there, and you have this. You can investigate this kind of on your own. It's really, really exciting stuff. And a lot of it's not going to make sense to you because it doesn't make sense to anybody because it's a parts list. So it just says what the scope of work is, what they're doing. Again, 1-for-1 replacement. The engineered drawings are not there. They don't connect the elevators. That's very common. You have your elevator folks connect to because it's a separate thing. You know, they carry the permit, normal working hours. This is the stuff that I was getting through before. This is where it's like trying to compare apples to apples is very hard. And so they all have these parts in there. And what do they do? And so basically all we did was we went through and said, okay, how many of the detector bases do we need? How many of the wall units do we need? And made sure that we were in the same 60 to 62 ballpark, and we are for all of those. And so when you go through each of these, it's there. The one thing that was slightly different on the quotes, and there's the price, 27.1. All right. And then obviously they have all their fine print and what's down. The difference was, and I'm going to show you on the fire control one, is that we are looking for CO2, some CO2 detectors right here. And it's something that I have not gotten an answer on yet. So I didn't want to share this in too depth today. Mike does not think there's going to be a significant difference. I need to put a call into one of the companies about this, but I want to confirm this with the fire marshal first, because this was just recently noted. We do not currently have those CO2 detectors. What I want to make sure of is, because this is a 1-to-1 system, that if we install those CO2 detectors, are we going down a road where we now need drawings? If that's the case, we buy plug-in CO2s on our own, we put them into the wall, and they don't connect to our fire panels. That's my opinion. It's just not worth that amount of money. It's really about the boiler rooms as the top priority, which is easy, something you can plug in down there. If you have an issue down there, you would respond. So they had, fire control had 6 CO2 detectors, whereas I think Johnson Controls had 2 and Siemens had 0. And I don't know if that was an oversight or if Siemens knows something, meaning if you go to 1-to-1, you can't do that. So that is really the only difference. It's the only piece, the missing scope of this project that's different. Everything else, quality manufacturers, quality designers, quality, these are the people that you would go to get quotes for these projects. And so that's what I have for you. I mean, you can go through each of these on your own if you'd like. Again, you can see what's there and what's not, what's included and what's not, but the prices really fall into this. And I just don't see how a $35,000 difference is something that is really much of a conversation.
And it does seem like the fact that the capital improvement plan has a number in it that's close to what the other quotes were, that the fact that Siemens came in late could explain that difference. It's not because the Siemens product is in some way that significantly inferior. It's more that they didn't upcharge.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
And it's not the first time we've seen that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I was just wondering how long each of these companies has been around.
Long time.
Okay.
Long time. These are all tried and true. Johnson Controls is bigger, and a lot of these are proprietary, Laura, because what happens is they buy smaller companies, they scoop them up. So some of the small mom and pop shops get bought out by some of these companies like Johnson Controls. And so that's why Simplex used to be another brand or company you would go to, and Johnson bought them. So that happens often in this business. But they've been around a while. They're all reputable dealers.
Are they all similar size companies?
That I don't know, because sometimes they're branches of others.
Larger conglomerates.
Yeah,
That's
yes,
good, yeah.
correct. Like they're a branch. In just my conversation with Mike and just the work I've done as both principal and superintendent, these are all companies that have been around since I've been around and looking at these things. They're always the same ones that come up. And they happen to do different things. Johnson Controls, this is their fire protection division. Johnson Controls does many other things. So
I had one question on the carbon dioxide detectors, just clarification.
Yep.
The only one that included the smoke carbon dioxide detectors was Firelight.
fire control. They
Right,
yes,
okay, fire control,
correct.
which has the Firelight. Okay,
Correct.
so,
They had 6, and I think Johnson Controls had 2.
but Johnson Controls were only smoke detectors?
No, they had 2 CO CO2 detectors.
Smoke
in there.
CO2. Okay, so it's
Yeah.
like a unit.
Yeah,
So all of them had smoke carbon dioxide detectors. It was just Siemens and Johnson Controls only had 2 and the fire control had 6.
Siemens had 0. That was
Siemens
the
had
one.
0.
Yes. And so that's where I want to, I wanted to have this meeting first and get your sense. And the cost is not going to be significant. You can't approve a cost tonight anyways. It would go to the board. The one piece that the full board, the one piece that I would want to verify before I put this in front of the full board would be if we introduce CO2 detectors into this system and we are no longer a 1-to-1 replacement because we do not currently have that, are we opening ourselves up for needing drawings? And if that's the case, I do not recommend doing the CO2s. You can do, if you do a CO2 system on your own, just like you could probably have one in your house. It's just
Mhm.
plugs into the wall, right?
Right.
If you could do that totally separate and would just do an alarm, it wouldn't notify anybody, but if you hear that alarm, you would know what it is. And the building's occupied, that's what you would want as the alarm.
So currently they're just smoke detectors.
Correct.
Okay, and that is this something that's not up to code now that it should be?
why you're doing a
taking in carbon
1-to-1.
dioxide?
It's not, if you don't have fire suppression, that's what you would end up moving to. But you're meeting your code because you're 1-to-1. If you go outside of that, you start doing brand new drawings.
Okay. So we want the carbon dioxide detectors. It's just we may have to do them separately.
We may
if-
have to find a
if-
different way to do it in the future. Yeah. That would be my suggestion. Because, even if they're $500 a piece, you're adding 3,000, you're at 30,000. The other ones are still 47. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So the one thing, ask the question.
Yep.
I agree with the price differential and the fact that they're all reputable companies. It's not,
Yeah.
you're not dealing with somebody that's a fly by night. I would say definitely the Siemens, and you're right. I mean, we have a plug-in CO2 detector in our basement, and I'm kind of wondering, we have some lower level spaces that students are in. It may be prudent to just say we're going to plug in a CO2 detector in every below ground space that students are in, plus the boiler rooms. And that way, because CO2, it goes to the lowest level. So if there's a
Right.
problem in the basement, you'll know it before it would get to the first floor or second floor students.
Yeah, and because it doesn't harm the building the way a fire would, it's not, if nobody's in the building and nobody can hear the alarms, then nobody's going to be hurt by it.
That's right.
But I think that if we bought, for $1,000, we could buy a whole bunch of them and put them all over the
Right,
school
right.
and still save $19,000.
Correct.
And if one goes bad, you just replace that one, and you're not
Right.
introducing something more complex into the other system, which,
Yeah.
and let's be real. So Johnson Controls only had 2. That's probably not enough. I mean, Phil, how many? So there's a boiler room in each school.
They always target where that heating unit is, because it's when you have hot water or you have steam, that's not where you're getting CO2. You're getting it from exhaust. You're getting it from
Right.
boiler space. That's where where they end up targeting. So they really probably would have, I bet the two, and I don't have the location of those two, but I would bet Johnson Controls and their two would be, one would be at center school in the actual boiler room, and then the office is one flight from there, where we store the materials. That would be the second location. I have to assume the fire control was just additional, just let's be sure, a couple in each hallway, 2, 4, 6, that's where that would be the total.
So I would tend, find out the answer, but
I will.
it wouldn't make me switch to the others, because as you said, they're not particularly expensive, and you just put them on the rotation list with every other piece of equipment for whatever their estimated useful life is.
Yeah. So if you're fine with this, what I'll do is I'll gather that information. I can send you an email once I have the answer on that. And then we can bring this to the full board. The sooner I get it, and I didn't want to connect with these people too much before we had this conversation. If you're leaning towards the Siemens group simply because price and you've got the quality there, I can give that rep a call tomorrow and find out too, time wise. The easiest time to do this obviously is when in the summertime. I want to make sure that timeline wise, if we wait till our May board meeting, are we impacting that timeline at all? And if so, if we, the sooner the better, then I may just say, hey, Michelle, can we call a meeting just to
You can do a
address
10-minute
this?
special meeting.
Right.
if Needed to,
Yeah. So I will know that from her tomorrow. If that's the case, and I'll find out the CO2 question too, because I think that's an important one.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that makes sense. So. go ahead.
Okay, so let me close these tabs. This is fire alarms. All right, onto the sidewalk. All right, so there's not as many notes for this one. Contractor does the permit. This is, and I don't know honestly if this is foundations that are being replaced. I don't know if these folks are just getting huge jobs. These contractors are extremely hard to find. I talked to Erica today. They had one quote. They only were able to get one quote when they did the basement here, when they poured the basement here in the back room. We're having the same problem, and so we tried to think a little bit outside the box. We have some quotes. They're not apples to apples, but I'll share you with what's there and what I think makes sense. This project is a little bit different because these funds do require a town meeting. And they are separate, meaning the center school project is one list, I believe, and the hall school project is one list. So these would have to go to town meeting. So let me show you what's what. So for center school, remember the issues in the two locations are different. Okay. Hall school has a section that needs to be replaced. It's almost 270 feet, I think. It's long, where there's it's just disintegrated. There's hardly anything left. So they have different needs than center school does. Center school has some spots that have lifted or cracked. Some have disintegrated where they need a little bit, a one panel replacement. The budget that's in for center school was $12,000. All right. Janie Building and Contracting came in at $10,230. That is a repair and replacement for all of the things that they walked around to bring us back to good standing. So you're rolling a wheelchair down, the sidewalk, you're not hitting bumps. There's, we have things painted right now to bring people's awareness to it, where there's trip hazards, things like that. They would bring us into very, very good condition for $10,230. As we were trying to get quotes for this, one of the things that came across our desk was precision concrete cutting. This is not a repair and replacement quote. Picture this as shaving, and it's basically like a machine where there's a level up there, and basically all they do is they take their machine and they pull it back and shave it so it grinds kind of sands it down, it grinds it out and levels it out. I will tell you, I watched it. It is ugly as can be. It does not, it's not a finished product. All it does is stop the tripping hazard. My 2 cents on it.
And it doesn't save us money either?
Well, it's a
Much?
little bit cheaper than J&E,
Not
But-
enough, so.
not much. And I'm going to tell you, it didn't do enough for me. Even the cracks, like it didn't do anything for the cracks.
Right.
It was stopping tripping hazards. It was doing the shaving. So not my recommendation, but I wanted to share it with you. The last one was New England Masonry and Roofing. They came out, they were doing 2 quotes for us, one on the sidewalk and one for the chimney. And they did a combination of shaving some and replacement project for 27,000, not even in the ballpark of what we have budgeted. I will tell you, here's my gut. J&E is a Willington contractor, willing to help out Willington. I just think that's what we got for a quote. It's probably closer to home for them. They do this work. This is what they do. And so I think that, they gave us a reasonable price. As far as
Makes a lot of
HMS,
sense.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's probably makes sense. If I didn't know that they were local, I would be curious, but.
That's, and
But
I
they don't
can't-
have to travel as far. That helps them too.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And honestly, this is something, if he wanted to do it on a weekend because he's recouping some money for a job that he's not losing during the week, that's something they could do as well, because it's closer to home.
Yeah.
These, there's certain contractors that are hard to find. I can't tell you the number of no return calls that we just put out calls all over the place. We're just no returns. Because $12,000 and $40,000 projects are not big in the grand scheme. When one foundation is 175 that they're getting, or some of these big campuses that they're doing, we don't compete with that. Now, we didn't get a quote for precision for Hall because it didn't make sense, different issue. So we had 2 quotes for Hall, and theirs was, one was McKinney and one was J&E. And again, J&E just is in my opinion the one to go with. It's still $10,000 less. And what I'll tell you is McKinney did not, there's a $3,000, and I can't remember if I put it on there. I'd have to go and look. Give me 1 second. They were 270 feet, 42.5. They actually added a section that they wanted to point out as something that was different. And it was in the front of the school, and they added an additional 3,000. So realistically, this right here is 45,000. So my suggestion, and you can tell me keep hunting, you can tell me what you want. My feeling is at this point, we try and move forward with J&E because we know how limited contractors are. And bring that one contractor to the full board, make the recommendation to the selectmen to at some point do a town meeting to get those going. And so when their quotes, I can show you here what they have. So this is Center School. They're removing 390 square feet of existing sidewalk, adding base as needed. They're repouring all of the PSI. All of them had 4,000 PSI. I'm assuming that's an industry standard. The other ones didn't do topsoil, seed, and hay as needed around. I think this is somebody that cares about, again, Willington. They were filling cracks as needed. And it's nice to have someone local that if we had an issue, I think it's someone that's going to care. So you can see what they had in there. I put that I would figure we'd have to put a $6,600 deposit down. Again, if you want to see the precision thing, I don't know if that's worth you looking at. Because
that doesn't fix the whole problem.
I agree,
Just-
Donna. I agree.
So if you're it's less than $1,000 between J&E and Precision, and Precision isn't really fixing the problem, so they should be off the table.
Yep.
And is there a reason the New England didn't bid on the HMS?
I think that once we saw the price for center school, we didn't go back to them for Hall.
Okay,
We actually had New England come out for specifically for the chimney, because that's a project that, again, that's specific. And while he was there, he said, "Oh, we do sidewalks too." And so he quoted that as an addition. And once I saw the price compared to J&E, I said, why am I going to ask them to waste their time for?
I wasn't sure the process. of
Yeah,
it.
that's why. Yeah, I mean, $17,000 difference, and this is Hall School's a much bigger job.
I'd rather give the money to somebody, assuming that they're not related to anybody on the board. I think that I would rather have, they're obviously competitive, and I'd rather keep the money to a family or business in town.
Yeah.
Any kind of warranties with this work?
I don't think that's typical to see anything on there. Yeah, if it's something like, hurricanes or tornadoes, it doesn't guarantee it.
Yeah, I was thinking more, because this is paving. I was thinking, a cement work, you put the
Yeah.
work in, and all of a sudden it's cracking and crumbling.
Which, yeah, that, I agree with you, Don. I want to go, I would love to go local, but that was something I was kind of thinking about. Do we know where the cement is coming from for the concrete?
I can
Seeing
make
there's a
sure.
local quarry that is not so good.
I can find that out.
Yeah, that would be, my only, and actually that could happen with any of them. I would want to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we end up with crumbling sidewalks.
We want to avoid that.
Yeah.
And it's different now because people know that that's there, and it's clear that people knew that it's there. They're liable for that, whereas before they
Right.
were not, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I did have a question. You said that the J&E would probably increase by, I think it was 34.
Good catch. Yeah,
100?
sorry. This one, so he had updated this number from, because the initial number that we got from him was a year ago. And
Okay.
the center school quote came in, and because the Hall School one was bigger, he still was working on it. And we just had a contractor today tell us it was going to be $200 for them to come out and just evaluate something we were asking them to evaluate. So I appreciate that he's doing this on his own. This guy was actually here on a weekend when he came through, so he hasn't updated that. But my sense, Laura, is this went up by about 10% costs across the board. Each of these went up 10%. That's what my number is.
Okay, all right, just wondering
So
what.
I just said it's going to be probably around that number, and it's still below this number. So,
That seems reasonable.
and I would have those exact dollar amounts for you when this goes to the full board. I'll make sure I have that. If it just, because then I can tell a contractor, like, you are the one. I need to make sure everything is right in here. I want to see what are you writing on warranty on that? That was a question that we had. Where's the concrete coming from? Put that on your checklist for us. Then that gets presented to the board. You approve it. It goes to Erica for town meeting, the selectmen for town meeting. Any other questions about any of those?
That sounds good.
My only thing is have you looked at any of these people in the Better Business Bureau or wherever you would check just to make sure that there's not problems?
I have not heard any issues. Everybody has at least, a claim or something out there because it happens, but nothing on these. And I'll do my due diligence again one more time once we get down to the final, just to make sure, do I find anything current that's, in the last 6 months to a year, are we seeing poor quality work or something like that? Yeah. I'll confirm that for the meeting as well. Cheney and Siemens. Okay.
Well, it's encouraging I just did a little quick search, and they say they specialize in foundation replacement, and new home construction and addition. So they are obviously, you know, and a sidewalk isn't as
No,
load bearing as a foundation, so.
that's the bulk of his work, actually. But again, because he's Willington, I think that's why close to home, willing to help out.
Yeah.
So-
Oh, that's a blessing.
All right, that's all I had, unless you have any other questions. So I'll get information. I'll shoot you an email once I have the final questions for. I'm really gonna target the fire panel first. I want to make sure that's more of a priority to on the.
They may have to order parts. so
Yeah,
you wanna-
just in
you wanna
case.
Get that, yeah.
I'll know, hopefully I can get that rep tomorrow. And I'll just shoot you an email, and if it is time sensitive, Michelle, I'll just contact you and say. We need a meeting, and I'll just get Brenda on it and see what we can, it should
Okay.
be a quick one, honestly.
Yeah,
So,
Fair enough.
Bill, when's the last day of school?
the 14th for kids.
Okay.
It's an early one.
I was gonna say
No
that's
snow.
nice. Well, yeah, there wasn't.
Yeah.
snow.
It's the earliest, I think, it's either the 14th or 15th. I think it's the 15th. I think the calendar on my desk is wrong, actually.
Hmm.
It might be the 15th, but I know teachers, it doesn't wrap around to the next week, which is amazing.
Nice.
It's the same number of days, but it's nice that it's early since they didn't get this.
Yeah, it is.
And you
It is.
just never know what June is gonna be like.
Yep.
Yeah.
It could be cold. We don't
We
know.
already had 90-degree day, right?
But when
Right.
it's hot, ooh.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
well,
Well,
thanks
thanks,
all. It
everybody.
is 5:08 PM and we can go back to our normal lives.
All right.
Good night,
Have a
everyone.
good day.
so, good night.